In May, we saw home prices fall month over month for the first time this year. Now, the decrease was roughly 1%, so it's not so much of a fall, but could we see home prices pausing in the Canadian real estate market? Well, there's a number of factors that could be contributing to this. The first being we're seeing an increase in supply, and we're going to look at the numbers here in a second, but this increase in supply could be combating the supply and demand issues that we've been having that have been driving home prices upwards so far this year. The second is bond yields in Canada have surged recently, and as a result, fixed interest rates have also increased. And with a large portion of Canadians opting for fixed mortgages this year, this could definitely be having an impact on the real estate prices. And the third is inflation. The inflation levels unexpectedly rose a little bit in April compared to March, and that's created a lot of buzz around what the Canadian government is going to do with respect to the interest rates. Unfortunately, the Bank of Canada did increase interest rates by 0.25 this week, and this isn't going to be seen in the numbers that we're looking at today with the price decreases in May, but it is going to impact home prices moving forward this year. So before we jump into the numbers for the May real estate market, if you like this kind of content or you get any value out of this, consider subscribing to the channel. And now let's get right into it. So looking at the Burlington numbers for May, we can see that sales were up 12% from April to May. Like we talked about in the intro, new listings are up almost 30% from April to May. And I think this is going to be helping with average price holding for a little bit. So we've had a big supply and demand issue this year, meaning that we've had a lot of demand and not a lot of supply. And that's been driving prices upward month over month, like we talked about so far this year. But I think increases in supply like this are going to help start to curve the market and maybe move it more towards a balanced market, even though that's not what we're seeing here. But active listings remained fairly stable, and average price was actually down about $1,200, and this is for all property types. Months of inventory down from 1 month to 0.9, so technically moving towards more of a seller's market, which is interesting because we've seen more new listings hitting, but there still is a good amount of sales happening out there in the market. Now, the interesting thing is what we're seeing with pricing right now. This chart shows pricing by property type in Burlington. Red is detached homes, blue is townhomes, and orange is condos. And we had the peak of the market in February of 2022. For condos, it was a little later, about April and May. And then the bottom of the market for these two property types was December, and it was about in March for condos. Now, what these numbers represent are the changes we've seen so far this year. So from the end of last year until May of this year. So for detached homes, we've seen an increase of 14% in just the first 5 months of 2023. Condos, we've seen an increase of 18%. Sorry, townhomes, we've seen an increase of 18%, and condos, an increase of just 5%. Again, a little bit of delay on the way down, a little bit of a delay on the way up is what we're seeing. Now, the interesting thing here when you look a little closer is townhomes have seen a pretty consistent increase this year, but detached homes have actually dropped in the last month. So when we look a little closer and we look at the numbers for month over month change by property type, you can see detached went from about $1,410,000 to just under 1.4 million, and that's a 1% decrease in the average price. And like I mentioned, this is the first time we've seen this number drop so far this year. Now for townhomes, they went from about 825 just over 854, and that's a 4% increase month over month. And that's a little bit more of what we've been seeing this year for detached and townhome property types, is about 2 to 3%. And condos increased 1% from April to May. Again, pretty consistent with what we've been seeing for condos. Now, just a couple of key takeaways here from the stats. I think what we're seeing here is more of a normal cyclical real estate market like we saw pre-pandemic. I think sometimes we have short-term blinders on when we're looking at these stats, especially with the 2-3 year pandemic stats that we saw with crazy statistics, and that wasn't really the norm. What we typically see in a cyclical yearly market in real estate is home prices increase, and because demand increases into the spring and into the early summer, and then July and August are usually a little bit slower because people are away. We typically see a little bit of a pickup around September, October. Things slow down again into the colder months such as December, and I think that's what we're experiencing again this year. Now, one thing that's a little unclear right now in Canada is the interest rates, and we're in a bit of a volatile situation when it comes to both fixed interest rates as well as variable rates. And it's keeping Canadians on their toes. It's keeping Canadians spending a little more cautious and a little more conservative because we've seen a lot of change in both of these numbers in the last year or so. Thanks so much for watching our May market update. We hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions at all, let us know. We're happy to help, and we'll talk to you soon.